Bienvenue à tous. Welcome to Reporters here on France 24. I'm Mark Owen. In this edition, the return of one of the most controversial contemporary figures in Africa. Laurent Gbagbo, acquitted of crimes against humanity by the International Criminal Court, is now back in Ivory Coast. Gbagbo spent much of the last decade away from his country, much of it in custody in The Hague. He became the first former head of state to face trial at the ICC for 4 counts of crimes against humanity, including murder, rape and persecution. His refusal to accept defeat in the November 2010 election triggered violence that swept the country. At least 3,000 people were killed. It's President Alassane Ouattara's declaration for a desire to reconcile and create national unity that's led to Gbagbo's return. But many are now asking what happens next in a country where political divisions often spill over into violence. Charles Emtaz with this week's Reporters Film.
Supporters of Laurent Gbagbo rally en masse in the Ivorian city of Abidjan, but they are met by resistance. Security forces have been ordered to block access to the airport. It should be a celebration, but instead, anger boils over.
They're trying to stop us. We're unarmed. We're trying to welcome our president, Laurent Gbagbo, but they shoot us with live ammunition.
You talk about reconciliation. Do they talk about reconciliation? You can't say we are reconciling to someone and then prevent them from coming in or prevent their supporters from welcoming them.
There's no sign either side will back down. At the very same moment, some 7,000 kilometers away, Laurent Gbagbo arrives at the Brussels airport after having been found not guilty of crimes against humanity. He's free after spending 7 years in prison.
When I got to the International Criminal Court, I was scared. I thought, maybe there are things that were done in my name that I didn't know of. But when the prosecutor and when his office decided not to charge me, well, that's when I realized that there was nothing to it. And from that moment onwards, when people came to visit me, I told them, I'm coming back.
The crisis in Ivory Coast that followed the 2011 election left more than 3,000 people dead. It's not clear if the country can turn the page. As Gbagbo boards a flight for Abidjan, he hears words of support.
Président, tes enfants te saluent ici. On est fiers de toi.
Just a few hours before his arrival, Laurent Gbagbo seems confident, a feeling that he says comes from his vast support among the people.
I did not inherit a political position. I fought for it. I did it all by myself, working since I was a young man. And so when I talk about the people, well, it really means something to me. These are not just words.
From the window, there are signs he's almost home. The Abidjan Lagoon and the districts of the city and its 5 million inhabitants. Le Plateau, Yopougon, Abobo, and many more. The government plans to welcome Gbagbo at the airport's presidential lounge. But none of the ministers of the current administration, led by President Alassane Ouattara, will be there to greet him. Once off the plane, a massive crowd is there to welcome him. He's quickly surrounded by a throng of supporters. Before leaving, Laurent Gbagbo waves, thanking the airport staff, and his car drives off. The traditional chiefs and royalty of Ivory Coast do not receive such greetings, and some have doubts about Gbagbo's return.
To President Ouattara, who agreed to open the airport's presidential lounge, who accepted the return of his rival brother. But apparently, there is one side that does not want reconciliation.
As night falls, Gbagbo's supporters still can't contain their anger. They accuse the West of orchestrating his downfall. With his political allies by his side, Gbagbo addresses members of his party. Despite a bad sound system, his message is clear.
I am happy to return to Ivory Coast and to Africa.
A day later, the celebration is still happening, this time in Gbagbo's political stronghold, the district of Yopougon. His return not only inspires Zouglou songs, but also outrage. For many who are gathered here, the celebration was cut short. They're upset that the current president, Alassane Ouattara, wasn't there to greet Gbagbo at the airport.
Reconciliation has to be sincere. Ouattara does not truly want it. You say there has to be reconciliation, but then you have to be there to greet him at the airport. You have to have some respect and say, let's have a clean slate. Let's leave everything in the past.
Near the airport, a few of Gbagbo's supporters ended their day at the hospital. Pierre was there to show his support for Gbagbo, but says instead he was injured by security forces. He wanted to remain anonymous for fear of retribution.
I went to the airport to welcome Laurent Gbagbo, and here I was hit by tear gas.
A tear gas canister?
Yeah, he was right in front of me. He hit me at the ankle, and there's a big fracture there now.
At close range?
Yeah, it was a close range. He hit me at the ankle. I have a broken bone now. I have to get operated.
The election in 2011 is at the center of tensions between Gbagbo's supporters and the current president. It was an election won by Alassane Ouattara, but 10 years later, Gbagbo still disputes the results.
Some decided to put Ouattara in power. But the position was already filled, so they had to remove me. I consider myself the winner of the presidential election in 2010. That is obvious. But we cannot go back in time. And we're not going to go back on this.
To get an idea of the level of violence suffered by some residents in Abidjan, all it takes is a trip to the suburb of Yopougon. Youssouf is a supporter of Alassane Ouattara. 10 years ago, his family was killed in a raid by pro-Gbagbo militias.
We had to be killed because we were strong supporters of Ouattara, because we voted for him. My big brother, little brother, and my cousin.
They were shot dead.
They were executed. They were executed, I tell you. I have not seen real justice from the ICC because we were victims. Victims in all senses of Laurent Gbagbo.
But Laurent Gbagbo believes he has been exonerated by the ICC and that he's not responsible for the acts committed in his name. For some victims, they think you have a responsibility, maybe a moral one. To these victims, what would you say?
I don't tell them anything. I will have to meet the victims later. I have a plan to meet with the organizations that represent the victims. But don't forget the case was adjudicated, and I spent 10 years in prison. Then I was acquitted, and I'm back home. And that is a fact that must be respected.
But Ivorians are still haunted by the electoral crisis in 2010 and 2011. Trabi Valeri is a journalist. He was there at the time and investigated massacres committed by both sides.
The post-election crisis of 2010 has exacerbated land disputes, ethnic conflicts, community conflicts, and even religious ones, because there are pastors and imams who were killed. These conflicts could surface again in view of the public discourse if people aren't willing to compromise. Ivory Coast has come a long way since going through a crisis that killed over 3,000 people. If we keep hearing the same speeches, it could be back like 2010, 2011.
For the moment, Ivory Coast is focused on reconciliation. On the first Sunday following his return, Laurent Gbagbo makes his first political move by attending a Catholic service, even though he was well known for being evangelical. He's welcomed with open arms.
I will ask President Gbagbo to do me the honor. President Laurent at one point left the Catholic Church to become an evangelical. But now he says to himself, no, I'm coming back.
In a very religious country, showing one's faith is an asset. Those close to the former president say it's time to rehabilitate his image.
It means the start of true reconciliation, but above all, it means the recognition of the truth that had been hidden, that had been...
What is the truth? What are you talking about, madam?
All that has happened. I mean, what he was accused of, which was not true, which was utterly false. Today, the ICC has cleared him, and he comes back acquitted, exonerated. It's a great joy for Ivorians.
Laurent Gbagbo says he wants to bring people together, especially those who feel alienated from Ivorian society. Your supporters would like you to run in the 2025 election. What are you going to do?
I am not ruling out anything. I am in politics. For now, I asked the leadership of my party to give me time to mourn my mother's death. And then I will return. I am a soldier. I stand at attention.
Observers believe current President Alassane Ouattara intends to change the constitution by lowering the maximum age for candidacy to 75 or even 70. It's a move that would exclude his potential rivals, Henri Konan Bédié and Laurent Gbagbo, and even himself from running. A way of giving the reins to another generation.
Charles Emtaz in Abidjan with this week's reporters. See it again on our website, France24.com. We, of course, will continue to report on all developments across Africa. Our team on Ivory Coast monitoring the situation at all times. Thanks for watching. Stay with us here on France 24.